All right, good evening. Start off with the stream should be on Pump Fun. Fuck, man. I'm old. I don't know if I'm older than Gainsey, but still. I think that's gonna work. It's been so long. That's why it took me so long to get live. I was like, I don't even know what I do anymore. Like, I didn't even know what I'm supposed to be doing here. Good evening, though. Welcome aboard. It's been a very long time since I streamed. Good evening. Good evening. We'll run through some kind of like on-chain discussion, which is actually where I've been spending the majority of my crypto time, aside from kind of trades, and then still heavily involved in the TradFi side of things. But any questions across any marketplace, any kind of, charts, thought processes, more than happy to field those. Yes, you're good, Unc. This is... God. World's changed, man. Yeah, holidays are over. Holidays are finished. It's time to get into it. Man, it just feels like Twitch is just cooked. Feels like Twitch is just the one that's just dead. I might just kill the stream on Twitch. If you're on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, best places, but like Twitch has just been like dead through restream. So we'll cook those. Thoughts on the Punk strategy coin? I've seen nothing about it. I've seen nothing about it. Give me the TLDR. Are we have I got to be buying this? The majority of stuff that I've been doing on chain, and like this is a separate account to kind of like be more public with discussions and kind of like think about the way that we structure portfolios, which is the first YouTube video. But like I've just been heavy on the kind of like digital collectible side of things, and obviously like cards moving well, but I've only just taken a cards position on this particular account. Like cards moving very, very well, and then like a few others that are just, kind of heavily in that field. There's a number of like Pokemon related tickers that have come up that, are still operating at kind of, let's say 5 to 15 million market cap, but are primarily focused on like securing and holding actual physical cards. And like, obviously they're very weak from my perspective in terms of being able to put money into, but cards and collectible crypto has a very strong, number one, financial and business model that is heavily undervalued even at current market cap, and sets up very well in terms of kind of what the future of physical and digital blend probably looks like in the space. And I know that people have tried operating in that area before, but they're doing a very good job as it stands, and people are quite obviously engaging as well with the gacha side of things. So yeah, I think that that's probably one of the more interesting areas of the market right now. For anybody unaware, I'm using Bonkbot. I'm using Telemetry, which is the web app included now within Bonkbot. And basically, it just provides people with a very easy dashboard of information, very easy list of certain things customized to your liking, that you can get a very, very easy view of kind of on-chain activity. And what you're seeing now is my discovery section here, which includes things like volume across different launch pads, includes launches and graduations on the associated launch pads. It includes this list here, which I'll go into shortly, and then a nice trending list here that isn't impacted in any way by financial contribution towards the towards the app itself. And this area here, this whale moves area, is basically providing a score depending on the market here. And this score is something that is, if you go here, is information that isn't public on how this score is curated. But as you can see, there are varying degrees of market cap within this list. So it just makes a very easy kind of list of 15, 20 tickers to be able to scroll through and get an idea of what is particularly hot in this moment. I was actually provided with some relatively interesting stats on what happens when things re-enter this list. It's usually very positive. Is it easier to make money in the trenches compared to leverage trading crypto? From my perspective, they're both equally different. And equally difficult as well. I think if you look back probably 6 months ago, the trench environment was arguably a lot easier and more comfortable to operate in. But now we're in the era of, us having all of these launch pads and all of this activity that's relentless and, absolutely non-stop in terms of what's actually going forwards. Then it's very difficult to operate on chain. It's not like impossible to operate on chain, but I think that like the standards required or the information required has grown significantly. And so that is more challenging from the environment that we have had previously. And obviously, even just a little bit further back from that 6-month period, we had things where there were, just not the degree of tickers and opportunity being presented, which is why largely as well I use telemetry, because it helps me condense and filter out a lot of that information. The leverage trading side of things is an acquired skill as well. It takes a lot of time and effort and discipline and psychology in order to be efficient and proficient at that side of things. And so, both come with different challenges. The thing that I would say about the on-chain side, which is probably a big advantage to a lot of people, is you have to be able to control your risk still, because even though this is like, a lot of people view this area as, right, like chuck a couple of sol in and see what happens. Whereas on the leverage trading side of things, you're like, right, put a stop loss in and see what happens. This is just, you decide your risk up front and you treat it like a sports bet or like an options play. You're just like, right, I'm just going to chuck like 5 sol at this and then I'm done, like finished, like whatever happens, happens. The gains on chain are going to far eclipse the leverage trading side of things. And if you can start to, be able to develop, whether that's efficient strategies or whether or not that's just being able to be long on the right coins at the right time and take profit well, then on-chain is still a better space to be operating in, because the gains there are significantly better and going to be far more accelerated. And we've seen it quite a bit actually with things like Cope in recent weeks. I remember staring at Cope when it was on telemetry at like 350k, and next time I looked it was like a 3 million market cap, and then I looked again, it was like a 9 million market cap. You're not going to get those opportunities elsewhere. And then the other side of things is that even the safer plays on chain still feel as though they are more worthwhile taking than playing leverage at the moment on kind of the traditional crypto markets. So like a coin like Useless, I think is a prime example of that. I keep on going back to that, and I know it's available to trade now on exchanges, but Useless as like an on-chain origin coin, I think that market still has like a 2, 3, 4x in it. I don't know which markets I could look at from a centralized exchange perspective and determine that that's what gains they have still in them. So even those bigger market cap coins, I think, can still translate to significant gains and returns. You just got to play around. CA of the Punk coin. Okay. I'm gonna check that out after for sure. What's the TLDR though, aside from the address? Oh shit, you see it here. Fees for trading, buy a punk when fees equal punk floor, list for 1.2 higher than floor. They have 4 right now. Like flywheel shit. Interesting market here as well. Relatively decent from a kind of like a TA perspective. Just taking some of the trending coins and just, you know, being able to blitz through and look through. Sub 15 million. Yeah, I see it, man. Thank you for that as well. I wasn't trying to be rude by ignoring that. Yeah, it's a bearish OBV divergence 4 hour on Sol. What are your thoughts? Do you think it's going to fail? I mean, I think the reality of Sol, it's a little bit like we discussed on ETH previously. And really, I'm just quickly going to another screen here just so I can navigate a little bit more easily. But like, you take a look at Sol at where it is now from a higher time frame perspective, and this whole zone around 250 is actually a relatively tricky zone for Sol. You know, historically, as soon as we start trading above 245, it's a very heavy area to try and pass through. So when we talk about failure for Sol, there's an RSI divergence across the last highs as well. We should always ignore divergences firstly, because the trend is usually very, very strong, and therefore divergences tend to invalidate, as we've seen on the indexes now, as we've seen on Hype now, we've seen on multiple coins that those divergences fail. But we have confluence with a very significant higher time frame area. Above 250 is just clear air for Sol, right? It's just going to run, and then we're going to set all-time highs. We're going to be in price discovery, and everything's going to be good. When we talk about are we going to fail, it's just important to contextualize the time frame that we're talking about. So I think it is probably likely that Sol rejects the first time that it trades into this zone. So therefore, I think a pullback is probably likely in the short term versus it just blasting clean through that 250 zone now. Unless something significant changes, or, you know, there comes some news or something that pushes Sol, I think it's probably likely that we get some form of correction. Do I think that you should buy that correction? Fuck yeah, because I think that Sol ripped through 250 next. So I think anything that Sol does on the downside, correction-wise, it's probably a buying opportunity, realistically. No, I haven't taken profit on that side yet. Feels like the meta at the moment on chain is like a lot of people are like moving towards even like resurgence of NFT side of things, you know, as you've been discussing here with the punks stuff. Like even the resurgence of things that are, you know, kind of like digital collectible based, just because of the success that some of the physical Pokemon side's been having. How do you actually get cautious? The caution from higher time frame perspective is pretty much everything shy of a weekly shouldn't be a problem in terms of divergence for trend. And it also depends very much on the style of the divergence. Like, you actually have a relatively decent one here on Streamer just to kind of like take, you know, this is a good divergence structure because it's 2 very clear peaks in the price action. Right? So like you can take this and you can be like, right, here's a peak, done. That's nice and easy, okay? That's like, this is a peak, this is a peak. It's a very clear divergence. What we had on other markets is like stuff that looked like this, right? Where it's like grinding higher and then the RSI is like doing this. So that's a lot more difficult to determine between the two. And the other one is that when we have a situation where the RSI is constantly doing this, right? So we have that one where it's like it's coming back down to this reset point all the time. And so it makes the divergence less comfortable to be able to play. And then this leg does this. So we prefer these. We prefer these nice simple peaks with no reset down here. And they're usually easier to play. And then when we're talking about time frames for caution, it's usually on kind of like weekly and above, 3-day and above, because that's typically where our trend changing divergences come from. Right? The daily is usually like survivable. You can usually mess around there. Don't you have positions in both spot and perp? So why not TP? My entry is too low. My entry is too low to worry about TPing. And I have no interest in really TPing. I would have interest only in adding in this trend. So, you know, I don't really, you know, my higher time frame view is unchanged. It has been unchanged for a long period of time now. I still think that everything is in a very good position to continue higher. I think if you look at the crypto stock side of things, the crypto stock side of things has moved dramatically as well and looks very, very clean for upside. I don't know how many people are paying attention to crypto stocks, but crypto stocks have broken out of some very significant higher time frame patterns. The last few days, the last week on crypto stocks has been very, very strong across the board. Markets like Coinbase and MSTR have still got 12-hour bull divergences or daily bull divergences from a stock perspective. Like the environment still, for me, is catered very much to remaining bullish. I don't really see any necessity to take profit on anything because I don't really see any danger that things have changed. Yeah, SPX might be overextended, but it like the market really doesn't care too much about overextension when it's in a strong trend. Right, that's all. So the market doesn't really care about that. It just usually just keeps running. I like this here. I think this is decent. It's a 65% correction down to there. Yeah, it's 13 mil and under. That's cleanest. You being in killer content, really appreciated. Pleasure. Man, Bagwork's another one that like kind of bums me out because I saw it earlier and I should have just pulled the trigger on it. Like there's some things that you like vibe with. It's hard to explain. Like you just see it and you're like, there's something there. But like, yeah, this is like even disgusting just looking at this now. Like I was absolutely just staring at this through this zone. I mean, like, yeah, I think on-chain is always crying out for a meta. Like on-chain, that's what it is, right? On-chain is always crying out for a meta. And for the last, you know, kind of 2 weeks or so, we've had the physical collectibles, the Pokemon collectible side on-chain. And a lot of projects, like even lower cap stuff, have been moving heavily and getting the returns. And then we're just looking for new things. You know, look, if you look at areas that pair very well with crypto, it's this side of things. People are still kind of, you know, crying out for this sort of content. It's not something that I kind of am regularly delivering, but you see those guys who are delivering content, streaming on like Pump Fun and doing all of that shit. Like, there's quite clearly an audience and an appetite for it. So, it wouldn't surprise me for any totals that these markets can hit. Rate cuts maybe sell the news considering the markets are rallying. Potentially. Like, potentially so, but like at the same time, like market may short-term dip, but I just don't see any change to the higher time frame structures. The traditional markets are more overextended than crypto is. Like, crypto certainly has room for another leg up. Like, BTC certainly has room to go into that like 125 plus category, like comfortably. I aped at 1.9 thanks to the homie. Been selling all the way up. Nice, man. How do you find coins to trade on chain? Haven't figured it out since Ether Delta. Jesus Christ. PTSD, man. Do you just have to be in the right chats? Like I said at the start, and yes, this stream is sponsored by Telemetry, but at the same time, this product is very good for people like me. I don't have the time to sit in group chats and to kind of like get that alpha. And so what this does is this provides shit for me in a very easy to absorb place. And look, even if I was a skeptic to it, like this whale moves area here, this whale moves area brought up Bagwork. This whale moves area brought up Cope for me on that day when it was trading at like 300k market cap. Like, there are plenty of markets that are pulled just simply into this list as a narrowed focal point for you. If you're not in lots of group chats, if you don't have, lots of inside alpha or lots of social circles that will share this information with you, this is just a very easy place to just narrow down a watch list and just say, okay, I'm going to like take some stabs at this or keep an eye on these or whatever it might be. So this like works for me, right? This is like a very easy dashboard that works. I like this market too. I think higher time frame, this is a relatively interesting market. It's just consolidation. It's just range. It's just one of those charts that like as soon as it starts to move, then it probably goes heavily. But you don't want to be sat in because you're just missing out on opportunity. So it's just one of those markets that I think, you can just stay looking at this, waiting for some form of breakout of like 6-7 mil and then moving in. And it probably runs very aggressively. And there's loads of just simple TA higher time frame charts that are present on chain. But kind of getting access to a watch list like this is relatively invaluable for doing that. Because the majority of time you look at things, it might be like a friend sends you a CA, and then you look at it, and then it's like an 11k topper, and then it's just dead. Or it's something that is already pumped, and so therefore you're like, shit, I missed this, I can't get into it. So again, seeing stuff like this and just being able to do the analysis is, relatively helpful for someone like me. What do people think about this market? What drink you drinking? Fuck. Peppermint tea. When do we get a normal stream? What do you mean a normal stream? This is normal now. On chain is normal. We've normalized this. When will you consider taking profit or reducing risk? I think when something changes dramatically on the higher time frame. From my perspective, nothing really is that different on the higher time frames to make me believe that I should be reducing risk at any point. Now, granted, I have a relatively diverse portfolio. I have access and exposure to markets that perform well in uncertainty, like silver and gold. I have my stock portfolio. I have my crypto portfolio. So I'm relatively like well spread out. But, you know, realistically, I think that, yeah, there's no signs for me to be worried. I if there was a correction, I would still want to add. Like, that would still be what I would want to do. I would want to add to positions. I wouldn't want to be under the take profit consideration right now. If I was to reshuffle my small bags right now, would you bet on Pengu, Doge, or Bonk in this moment? I would bet on Pengu. I think Pengu is the strongest chart. It's like Pengu is the chart that's kind of the cleanest, right? And obviously, like, data wise, we're out here, right? Because there's a high over here. But this style of correction is one of the best higher time frame corrections that you could wish for, basically. So you get something that's like corrected like 40%, but it's still relatively clean in terms of the correction. You know, like, you look at this, and this is basically like, this is just a bull flag, right? This is just like bull flagging here. So you get 40% correction that takes place over 6 weeks, and now you start to see strength again. To me, it feels like this is the easiest market to bet on. From my perspective. And then it just goes for all-time high price discovery next. And the other great thing about Penguins is that, you know, what we've seen is that some of these projects, and, you know, Collector Crypt is another one, although far more recent, okay, and early. But what we're starting to see is that a lot of these crypto markets that we know and we have experience for potentially years, like with Pudgy, they're now actually doing real world shit. There's actually something legitimate, real, and happening on those markets. And obviously what's been built as a brand with Pudgy is like crazy from where we were like 2021 summer. So we're actually seeing true development and growth and business through some of these things that we've associated with for years. And those markets are proving value. This is probably going to be one of those markets where I'm like, I should have been in this. The problem is, I don't know how many of you guys like remember this, right? Like, do you remember when gamers basically launched their attack on crypto? And like, every gamer hated crypto. Every Twitch streamer hated crypto. And so it feels weird to be back in that space. But yes, you know, the dynamic of streams nowadays is obviously far different, far wider. It's not just like games anymore. And some of the biggest content aren't even gaming content now. But it just feels like a hard area to crack. I still think that Useless is a really good looking market, man. Like, from a simplicity perspective, I think that this is one of the easiest, cleanest, best looking charts. RSI back above the 50, not yet pumped. Nice run of the lows, really clean reaction back higher. Like, to me, this just feels like a very easy, simple, sensible market. And I referenced this in the first YouTube video that we did with Telemetry, and it's like, this this market is one of those that you would feel more comfortable having Sol in and just waiting for it to move and riding through corrections versus other things that are just like dead. But super clean higher time frame. Super clean. But we're probably just entering streaming matter. Higher high, higher low. Yeah. Please share a bit about your journey. I think I'm following you since 2020. I mean, my journey's like relatively long to try and paraphrase. I mean, like, tell me what you want to know, and I'll hopefully be able to give you an answer. Yeah, I do new pairs as well, but I have to have an element of you know, being relatively relaxed when it comes to discussing lower pairs, especially here, right? Because, you know, I'm a relatively large account, and discussing pairs publicly of like newer launches is a very dangerous thing to be doing. So there comes like a certain market cap in which I can discuss publicly, and then there's a certain market cap that's below that I have to just operate and deal with in kind of like private. Because, you know, I can't just be saying, oh, I'm going to buy this shit here, because, you know, things like tweets are botted, posts in Discord are botted. So yeah, it can get a bit funky. Last bull run with Ubisoft. Sol's 500 by end of year. I think it's absolutely a possibility. Thoughts on longing Pengu here? It should hold lower time frame bullish structure now. Again, I think it's a relatively sensible call. Like, what's wrong with long in that market from here? It's had a lower time frame correction again today. It's been, you know, slapped down along with the other markets on over this weekend, and we know that the higher time frame is in a really interesting point. Like, I think it's just a super easy market to have exposure to. Fat correction, huh? Decent area. Again, in terms of like, if you're taking stabs on markets like this, then these are the areas that you're doing so. You know, you want markets to be trading back into former consolidation regions. We don't really care too much about kind of like what that looks like, what this looks like, because that doesn't matter on you know, meme coins. You want it to just be trading back into these sort of zones so you can set yourself up with risk reward. Now, that's the most important thing here still, because we need to have an element of risk management when we're operating on chain. So we still need to be like, okay, look, I need to take it. If we go down here, I need to be out of position. But we know that these markets, even the majority of crypto markets, are moving like this, right? We've spoken about it a lot, where we see that just crypto markets on the higher time frame are just elongated versions of market structure. So you get moves that are like this, higher high, and then it trades 70% lower into a higher low, and then it rips 4x up here, right? And then it trades 70% lower into a higher low. And on-chain is just like that higher time frame market structure, but on the lower time frame. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that when we're taking some of these trades and some of these opportunities, that we're just taking markets that, number one, either we believe that there's some, you know, viability to success there, whether or not that's because like we like the meme, whether or not that's because the community's good, whether or not that's because we've, you know, encroached on other social channels like TikTok or whatever it might be. And you have some parameters for risk reward, and you have some parameters to say, you know what, if it drops below here, I've got to run the fuck away from it. Because even though I might just be dropping 10 sol into this, I still want to get out with 6 sol left, right? And then use that 6 sol for other things. TA absolutely works on chain. TA works in every single area of markets where there is supply and demand. Okay, TA works on Pokemon cards, TA works on majors, TA works on gold, TA works on chain. Any area in which there is supply and demand active, TA is going to be valuable to you. I did a little clip with Telemetry where I was trading on the 1 minute chart, just utilizing some TA principles around supply and demand, and like just resulted in like bagging like a 2x in the space of like 15 minutes or so. Just because again, those processes apply. Now, when you get a market that is, just graduating or, has significant other influence on it, then yes, TA is going to be less likely or less successful in its outcome. If you're talking about a market that has some establishment and it has some data and actual data you can work with, like a 1 minute chart of a coin that has just launched is not going to give you accurate supply demand data. Something that has some history, sure, we can work from that. Yeah, I think that Doge rips. I had a theory. Well, let's test first because it's been a while since we streamed. How many people remember what my Doge theory was? I had a theory about Doge maybe 12 months ago. Probably 12 months ago. And I've been in a Doge position ever since, which has gone 2.5x, back to break even. I think back up to like 2.5x. And there's going to be no shame if there's not a right answer. I'll still explain it. Again, this is that example of market structure. High, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. Again, and the corrections in between these are then significant as well. It's like 50%, 50%, and then rips up again. And like the correction here has already been another 42%. Right? So Barrett, brother, I don't even know this one. Yeah, you're cooked then. So the thought process on Doge, basically, so Doge has got a significant amount of strength at the moment. Doge strength is obviously attributed to the fact that ETF looks highly likely to be coming, and there are also some larger funds that are beginning to accumulate and pick up Doge. The thought process I had on Doge, which was 12 months or so ago, was that basically because meme coins are so fragmented, and again, remember this was 12 months ago, so now just think about how fragmented the market is today, that basically it's too much. And you see this from people who even have been in crypto for years. The market, there's just too much information. There's too much shit to try and like wrap your head around, to stay on top of, to understand like where to get the contract addresses from, where to find these projects. Like there's just too much shit. And so because the meme coin space has become so highly fragmented, but also remains incredibly kind of well traded in terms of volume and what's actually going through on chain, that people look for, how do I get exposure to meme coins? And that exposure is Doge. Like Doge is the BTC of meme coins. And so when people are looking around and saying like, how the fuck do I get exposure to this space? Because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing on chain, or I don't know how the fuck to find projects. Like I just need something. And that something is Doge. And that's why Doge will perform well. And that's why Doge hasn't gone away. That's why Doge still remains a talking point after all these years. And I think that Doge is primed higher time frame to make moves. I don't use VWAPs, but like all I can speak to is that BTC consolidation is absolutely fine. I need to start adding some things to this portfolio, but I don't know what that is. Like I said, on this account, I bought the top on cards, so that's fine. So I'm in at like the absolute pico top. So that's fine. We'll just sit on that and wait. I've taken some stabs on lower market cap collectible stuff because I just like that area right now. But I need something else. And like if streamer meta is going to take off, then maybe we try something there. But already the market's becoming quite saturated in those mid-tier coins. So it's whether or not you just like you believe in something like Bagwork and you decide to just like go in and just like, you know, look for that 100 milli. You try and take a tab on something slightly under. Yeah, like this is a good example. Zard. Charizard Capital. Like this is a good example of what I was talking about. Like this market, again, highly volatile, but this is a market that started to take off obviously when the collectible card kind of meta started to move. And this is a market that like this is about acquiring as many Zards as possible from like a portfolio and a vault perspective. Like this coin is cool. Like I like the concept behind it. Future success? I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. How do you determine TP areas for on-chain coin when they go into price discovery? It's probably just the classic. It's the classic leverage trade argument, which is that you have to always take profit on the way up. That's when you want to be doing it. You're never ever going to catch a top. So the mental side of making sure, look, I'm never going to catch a top here. So I'm just going to scale out along the way. That's number one thing to do. And then making sure that if you particularly like the project, then obviously you make sure that your scaling out process is more limited. Okay, so you want to keep more exposure to the project, but you still need to pay yourself, especially if you're up a lot. And then you always want to be able to keep that moon bag. You know, we talk about and have talked about that for years. It's like you keep that little pocket of it to be like, if this goes really nutty, I want to still make sure I have exposure. And then the other one is that if you make a fuck ton of money, if you make something that's significant, if you make something that like changes your portfolio makeup totally, then you take that profit regardless of whatever the coin is. So if you have that winner that is like it takes your portfolio from a 10k account to a 100k account, you take the fucking profit. Like when you're talking about those sort of massive wins that dramatically alter the way your portfolio looks, then you have to take those off the table and bank them. Because it's then not about what that coin could do in the future and whether or not you close too early. It's about what now having access to 100k of capital can do for you and the opportunities that creates, right? No longer are you sweating and dumping, 2 or 3 sol on things and watching the 1 minute chart, right? You're now able to put more size into more things and take more opportunity that potentially then increases the number of hitters you're going to get. I don't think I need to take profit on Doge and Sol. They're like very different markets. Like we're talking about on-chain price discovery. Like Sol and Doge are both like not price discovery markets. They're also in like far better shape than price discovery markets because the higher time frames are still fine and haven't moved or broken out. Like they've like, and especially on Doge. Doge is like at the start of the impulse. I've got no reason whatsoever to think about taking profit on those markets. They're two very, very different things. All right, we'll do another 5, and then we'll wrap up for the start to the week as the market's open 5 minutes or so. This is already like a 50% correction as well. Yeah, 51%. Another very heavily talked about coin. Yeah, join any One Piece, yes. Yeah. Like my TCG side has been fucking huge, especially over the last like 6 months. Like not only have I been loving that side so much in terms of like the physical side of it again, but yeah, just like expanding out dramatically, you know, kind of started really ramping up maybe 6 months or so ago, and then things being in a very good position, you know, kind of as we are with Pokemon Bull Run and next leg higher on those markets. And like Pokemon indexes are like disgusting when you look at them. Like Pokemon indexes are basically like crazy breakout rally during COVID, like 2 years of consolidation and crazy breakout rally now. Pokemon indexes in general just look wild. So like you could have sold it at 0.42 and rebought it for 0.15. Yeah, but then that's like time horizon stuff, right? That's like the difference in terms of time horizons and what your expectations are. Like if I dump money into Doge or Sol, then I don't really plan on touching it. If I'm actively trading it, sure, it's a different discussion. If my entry is based on a 4-hour chart and we've got a 4-hour divergence, it's a different discussion. If my entry is based on a monthly chart looking good and we have a 4-hour div, it's largely irrelevant. Like, it's very, like, all trades are very, very different depending on what the outcome is, the time horizons, you know, the planning, the, you know, so much. It's not just easy to be like, hey, go into this, you know? Like, hey, take profit on this because there's this present. Or like, you're up this much, take profit. The trade is the trade. Price discovery on chain, that's a different discussion. Swing traders always won this cycle, so what are you waiting for now? Again, higher prices. Like, there's no reason not to be. And, like, I find it strange, and again, I spend far less time on Twitter, obviously, nowadays. I don't really absorb anything that goes on kind of on the Twitter side apart from my own world, but I find it weird how so many people are negative about the current environment. Yep. Everything seems kind of, from my perspective, pretty chill. How would you play pump if in spot? Fundamentals look good, but obviously pumped a fair bit. Yeah, that's a market that, again, I think a lot depends on what your expectations are, what your entry is, what your length of hold is, you know, what your passion about the project is. Because if you're entering on, you know, let's say you've got an entry that's a little bit kind of suspect, you don't know if it will survive any major correction, then sure, you can absolutely think about taking some profit off into this move. It's moved very aggressively, like you said. If you're in from like the Pico bottom, do you want to close here? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not. Can you survive a correction? Almost certainly. Like you just got to think about, you know, what it looks like from your own personal perspective on kind of why you're in that position. You know, did you buy that spot with the aim of making a 2x and then getting out? Did you take that spot with the aim of holding it for the next 12 months and making a 5x? Like, what are your own thoughts on that? And sometimes our own thoughts are lost along the way because price starts to dictate what we think. So we could have got into the position, we said, you know what, if I bag a 2x on this, that's unreal and I'm going to close the position. But when we hit the 2x, because prices move so aggressively, suddenly we're like, oh shit, I don't want to close this. Like, no way I'm closing it at 2x, this shit's going to run. So you also need to make sure that you're just kind of sticking to the plan. As a trader, what do you do when the top is in and it's the start of a bear market? Do you just not trade or invest until the start of the next bull run? Well, number one, yeah, you can short the market and still actively trade the market. Number two is there's always a bull market somewhere. So there's always a market that's doing well. So, you know, from a financial markets perspective, then obviously things just rotate. Areas like gold and silver tend to perform very, very well during those times. Riskier markets tend to not. And then we start to see flips. We also see periods where we have, you know, those aggressive counter trend runs on risk markets. We also have stocks that perform very well when there's a downturn like that to general risk markets. Again, depending on what caused that environment to you know, kind of come to life. And what we will see as well from a crypto perspective is we'll also see markets like that. We'll also see markets within the ecosystem be bear market, bull markets, basically. So we'll see markets that are safe havens and that will move counter what the rest of the market is doing. And you see that in other areas as well. So I can give you the example from like a Pokemon perspective. So in the Pokemon market, you see it as well, that money doesn't really leave the space. Money doesn't leave the hobby. So if there's a rotation or a slowdown in the Pokemon market, it simply rotates to another area of that market. You might have modern cards that are popping off and they go on an insane run over the course of 6 weeks. And then when that market starts to correct 30, 40, 50%, that money simply goes into other areas that then see movement to the upside. And all financial markets are the same. There's always markets that perform well in poor conditions. Cousin said sell crypto near the top, rotate into silver 2 to 3x in a year or two. What are your thoughts on rotating crypto into silver? Like I've been telling people to buy silver for 2 years, longer, 3 years, because too many people have too much money in one place, which is crypto. And they don't realize that there are significant other investment options out there that will perform very, very well. Sure, at a steadier rate, but still perform very, very well with less stress. I think silver is a market that looks good. Silver miners have looked good for a long period of time as well. My average silver buys are like $23. Like it's like I'm been holding that shit so long. Silver is a great market to be involved with. Silver should go past $50. Is the meat of the move done? Probably not, but again, depends on the environment overall. The same with gold. Gold's just price discovery market, and you just let it do its thing, you know? So that's kind of what we have to keep in mind, is that when these markets do those moves, they typically continue for a good length of time. No, I don't plan on exiting silver soon. Again, I think the environment's well suited to the metals trade overall, so... What if retail is not coming back? I think like retail is being onboarded all the time. Like, genuinely, I think that retail is being onboarded at a, you know, I don't think we're going to have those huge like booms of retail influx like we had previously, but I think that retail is just slowly adding, basically. Like I think that crypto and crypto trading is just becoming part of culture, and therefore, you know, it's actually something that we're not going to see those big booms. We're actually just going to see continued steady growth, would be my plan. But as I said, I also think that the majority of people are like, they're here, they're already doing shit. So, and I think on chain is where they come to now. I think a lot of people's first actions are like downloading Phantom, and like that's their onboarding process now. Yeah, I'm here, so retail is here. Yeah. All right. It was a good stream. It was nice to chat and catch up. I'll I'll be back midweek with a YouTube video. We'll discuss a little bit more about the portfolio and kind of what the plan is there. We'll see how badly I'm fucked on cards, and then then we'll do a little update on that midweek. And if anybody wants to kind of hear my daily intake of thoughts, then please come along and join the Haven as well. That's where I'm posting the majority, and I spend the majority of my time on any portfolio stuff, leverage trades I'm taking. Basically, all of the trading action that you no longer see on Twitter as actively is all taking place in the Haven. So if you want to be a part of that, then please come along, sign up for the Haven. And a big thank you to the guys at Telemetry for this and for giving me and other people access to something that's making the on-chain experience easier, more fluid, easier to execute in action. And hopefully for the majority of people result in greater levels of profit. So if you also want to sign up there, I know that Barrett's been sharing the ref link. And as always, I greatly appreciate your questions, greatly appreciate your time in listening to my thoughts on a Sunday evening just before the market opens or before you go to spend the rest of your Sunday evening and whatever you're going to do. And I hope that you all had a wonderful weekend. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week ahead.